psychologist Christopher Collins.
Join live Africans United. Know Thyself, Black Power Radio, right here on Oak 93.5. Each and every Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., where we discuss solutions to issues affecting Black communities locally, nationally, and globally. With hosts Brother Essence Divine and Brother Asar Amen. With special guests each week. You can follow Africans United. Know Thyself, Black Power Radio on Facebook.com/Oak 93.5. Or you can engage in conversation by calling live 919-899-9305. Once again, each and every Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. right here on Oak 93.5.
Peace to the elders, the ancestral giants. Peace to kings, queens, and royal families all over. Peace to you, brothers and sisters. You're tuned into Oak 93.5 FM, Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio, where ancient wisdom meets modern truth, and we speak directly to the souls of the people. This is more than conversation, this is elevation. The mission is empowerment, cultural awakening, and grassroots truth-telling. I'm joined tonight, as always, with the Honorable Brother Asar Amen.
Anaka Saw, a BB for Hodier, African liberation, Black liberation, African power, Black power, for every Black man, woman, and child on the planet. We are the original people. I am the original man. I am a son of Africa. Peace to the African family, peace to our Black family out there in the listening audience.
And I'm also proud to have my sister, the beautiful and brilliant Dr. Kimberly Mutarian.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Brother Essence and Brother Asar. I am honored to be on with you all tonight, and I know we have a treat of conversations to give out to the public.
Yes. Welcome tonight, family, as we deal with raw truth. America says justice, but delivers injustice. Our people are still locked in cages, stripped of housing, denied quality education. Our communities are targeted through law and policy. This is not accident, this is design. Tonight we're here with Attorney Don Blagrove, Executive Director of Emancipate NC, to address contradictions, speak on how we fight back, how we build and create a world we want, a world for our children. Attorney Don, please introduce yourself and tell us about Emancipate NC.
First of all, thank y'all for having me here. I'm looking forward to this conversation, have been looking forward to it all week. Once again, my name is Attorney Dawn Blagrove. I am the Executive Director of an organization called Emancipate NC. Emancipate NC is an organization that is committed to ending systemic and institutional racism and abolishing the carceral system. We do that through a bevy of ways. Community trainings, community educatings, direct action, and really and truly just being a force to stand with the people every time they have to fight systemic and institutional racism. We want to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people to give them the support that they need to remember their own power, to stand in their power, and to create the world that we believe we all deserve. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for that introduction. And well, first of all, tonight I want to do the mission from the Department of Justice, their mission and values, so everyone, people who don't know can follow a little bit of where we're going to be going at tonight. First of all, the mission says, the mission of the Department of Justice is to uphold the rule of law, to keep our country safe, and to protect civil rights. Values: independence and impartially. We work each day to earn the public's trust by following the facts and the law wherever they may lead, without prejudice or improper influence. Honesty and integrity. Our employees adhere to the highest standards of ethical behavior, mindful that as public servants, we must work to earn the trust of and inspire confidence in the public we serve. Third, respect. Our employees value differences in people and in ideas and treat everyone with fairness, dignity, and compassion. And last, it states, excellence. We work every day to provide the highest levels of service to the American people and to be a responsible steward of the taxpayers' dollars. Let's begin with some of the pressing issues in 2025 African Americans are facing. New challenges around justice from the erosion of civil rights, protection to systematic inequities across the board, the direct contradictions with the Department of Justice mission and values. From a legal standpoint, how can we hold the Department of Justice accountable with its missions and value?
All right. So here's the truth of the matter. And I want everybody to brace themselves because it's not a truth you're expecting to hear. There's very little that can be done to hold the Justice Department accountable to the values and the mission statement that you read out. Why? Because what America has built itself upon, which is this democratic system, this system of checks and balances where there are three branches of equal government that all check and balance each other so that no branch of government has more power than the other. Unfortunately, at this point in American history, we are no longer there. And the executive branch has an outsized amount of power over the other two branches of government because they have acquiesced their power to the executive branch. And because of that, the things that would hold the the Justice Department accountable, which would be essentially our legislative branch and our judicial branch, are no longer doing their jobs. And because they aren't doing their jobs, then the executive branch gets to do whatever it wants to do. And so that is why, as we have this discussion today, one of the things that we're going to talk about is the importance of Black folks realizing the moment that we are in and creating and building self-sustainable systems so that we are not reliant upon the government of the United States, which is in a rapid downfall, to reflect back to us our dignity, our humanity, our rights.
Yeah. So, real quick, when you say the legislative and the judicial, they're not doing their part, so the executive is kind of upholding it all. So the legislative part, they write the law, right?
That's right.
And the judicial, they uphold the law.
They interpret the law.
They
yes,
interpret the
that's
law.
right. And so here, just the basic civic lessons, right, is that the three branches of government are the legislative branch, which is, on a federal level, is Congress, okay? Now, we see the monkey that Congress has been acting, right? They have acquiesced to Trump on every possible turn. They have no intention of holding him accountable, and they're going to do whatever it is that he says that he wants them to do. That is not the way they're supposed to act. The judiciary branch, however, is supposed to be, which is our Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of the United States, is supposed to interpret the laws and interpret the actions of the executive branch and the legislative branch to determine whether or not the things that they're doing are constitutional. So basically, the judicial branch is supposed to be the guardrails to stop us from going off the cliff away from democracy, into fascism, losing people's civil rights. And then the executive branch is literally just supposed to execute the laws that the legislative branch creates. The executive branch, the president, has the power to appoint people to be on the Supreme Court, right? Which is part of the checks and balances of the executive branch. The problem is that we have allowed the executive branch to infiltrate both the legislative branch and the judicial branch with people that are not committed to upholding the Constitution, but are more committed to upholding Trump's reign of tyranny. And because of that, we don't have the checks and balances that we're supposed to have. And that is why we are seeing how many times we wake up in the morning and look at the news and say, can they do that? And in theory, they shouldn't be able to do many of the things that we're seeing. But unless the checks and balances, unless our government works the way it's supposed to work, except for the people, there's no other mechanism to stop it.
I had something to say. Basically, as far as the tyranny that Trump and his administration is committing, is in direct opposition to the mission of the Department of Justice, in the United States. And I think that, basically, when we're talking about, the three branches, all three branches have a serious responsibility to make sure, that things are fair and that justice is served. And so basically, one thing that, I know from my studies is that, it's a lot of corruption, right, that's taking place as far as on high levels of government. And so I really can appreciate, your honesty as far as saying that there's really nothing much that we can do at this point. But that doesn't mean that there isn't hope, and that there isn't some things that we can do as far as organizing, to make sure that justice is served for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. And let me be 100% clear. I do not mean by any means that people should throw up their hands and give up the ghost.
Right,
That is
that's
not
right.
what I'm saying
That's
at all.
right.
What I am saying, though, is that what we are witnessing right now is white supremacy cannibalize itself. And what I am saying is that in this moment, when they are busy eating up each other, we should be busy in our own silos as black folks, building, creating the world that we want to live in, creating self-sustainability, using this moment to strategize and organize so that when this empire falls, which it is falling as we speak, we do not fall with it.
So, and then you did say something interesting, and I'll move on in a second. But about not upholding the Constitution, isn't the Constitution that's the standard law of the country,
It
right?
is. It is the rule. It is the rule of this. The rule of this land is the Constitution, but one of the things, I'm a lawyer, and one of the things that they teach you in law school is words matter, right? Not just words, because words don't have independent definitions, standalone objective definitions. Words are defined by the people who are in positions of power. So, as you read that statement from the Department of Justice about being fair and being equitable, and not using race or prejudice as a means to make decisions, the folks that are in power now think that is, they are defining what they are doing as just that. They are defining putting children in cages as part of protecting America. They are taught that is justice as far as they're concerned. They are upholding the Constitution by saying that they're going to round up people from schools and churches and throw them out of the country at will, because that is what it takes to keep the country safe. Again, it is all about definitions, and these words, we can't allow ourselves to get caught up in the wordsmithing of racism, because that is a game we will always lose, right? We have got to be able to hold firm to our definitions, our beliefs, our understanding. I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. That's
Right.
what we need to be
Yes.
about,
Right,
right?
right.
I don't care what the words on the paper say. I see what you do. I see what it looks like. So it doesn't matter to me what you're saying to me. It doesn't matter to me that you're telling me that this is justifiable or that this is constitutional. Because let's just be clear, slavery was constitutional according to the United States of America. Jim Crow was constitutional according to the United States of America. Us black folks not having the right to vote, not having the right to be full citizens, all of that, all of those things were laws that were established by the United States Supreme Court. So let's make no mistake and have no fantasies about the perfection of these institutions. They have always been flawed. They are just flawed at a place right now that is irreparable.
Right, right.
And can I say
yes,
also,
yes.
I think what we're also seeing is the very thing that white America based their livelihood and belief system for themselves is corroding for them as well. And when you begin to see your own inside implode on itself, it shapes up things a little bit more differently than it would have had before. because before the only enemy they had was us. Today, they're imploding on themselves. And what do you do in a country that is so outlawish? I would say, if there's such of a word, that you don't even care about those that you pretend to care about.
Right.
And so I think for the most part, we're really seeing everyone is seeing America for what it is, and and it makes everybody reconfigure. Where do we go from here?
Right. That's a permanent question we was asking each other for the last couple of weeks. But outlawish is a word. We're gonna put it in the dictionary if it's not.
Right.
Right.
We're creating our own vocabulary.
Yes,
Words
yes.
are what we say they are.
Right.
Yes.
I want to get back to this that just speaking around that Constitution a little bit later. We gotta, we'll step into that a little later. But I want a few weeks ago, you was conversing. We was at a function. You was conversing about the Wake County District Attorney, that race that's coming up, and many in our community may not realize how much power the DA holds over justice and fairness. Could you break down the role of the DA and what we should be asking, demanding, and expecting from whoever takes that seat?
Yes. So, make no mistake, the district attorney is the most powerful person in the criminal justice system that most people don't know anything about. In North Carolina, the district attorney determines what charges are going to be brought against an individual. They determine whether or not, when that person will go to trial. They determine whether or not that person will be offered bail or not. They determine whether or not that person will be offered a plea agreement. They determine whether or not that person even sometimes has access to fully prepare for trial. The power of the district attorney is unmatched, not by the judges here, not by anyone else you can imagine. In Wake County, we have a unique opportunity where the current district attorney, Lauren Freeman, has announced very early that she is not going to seek re-election, which objectively is a good thing for Black folks. However, the candidates that we have that are stepping up to fill that void are folks that we should be scrutinizing in very strong ways. So let me give you some bread and butter ideas or examples, right? Let's say that in North Carolina, we know that marijuana is still illegal, right? However, if you have a district attorney that simply chooses not to prosecute any low-level marijuana charges, they don't get prosecuted. It's just that simple. There's no other mechanism to say, oh, you can't do that. No one can come to the DA and say, oh, you can't not charge this. Sure you can. The DA can do whatever they want to do, and there is no one else in law or in the state of North Carolina that can stop the DA from charging or not charging whatever they want. Let's say, for example, you get charged with, I'm trying to think. The marijuana is a big one because that's one of our gateway drugs, right? Oh, the death penalty, for example. The death penalty is a charge, or is the ultimate punishment in the criminal justice system, right? District attorneys can choose who gets the death penalty and who doesn't, who faces that and who doesn't. If you commit your crime in Durham, you're not going to get the death penalty. There's lots of counties all over North Carolina, the 100 counties all over North Carolina, that don't ever charge the death penalty. If you commit a crime in Wake County as it stands right now, the chances are that if the death penalty is on the table, it is on the table. You can get charged with it. But if you just drag that dead body across the line in Durham, you're not facing the death penalty. That is the power of the district attorney. And every district attorney in North Carolina has the power whether or not to seek the death penalty or not. But let's get even more granular, because I know my folks listening, y'all all know what a habitual felony is, right? Habitual felony means that it is a status charge. So if you have been if you've been charged with a felony and you have been convicted of 3 felonies before that, because the DA has the opportunity to charge you as a habitual felon and elevate the status of your current crime so that you spend more time in prison.
Enhancement.
Okay? It's an enhancement. That is entirely in the discretion of the district attorney. So there are counties all over North Carolina where nobody but black folks ever gets charged with habitual felons, despite the fact that equal numbers of whites and other folks have multiple felonies. It is at the discretion of the district attorney. So the district attorney can choose who they want to habitualize and send to prison for up to 10 more years or more, simply because of their status of being previously convicted of felony charges. These are all the kinds of powerful things, powerful ways that the district attorney can and does impact the everyday lives of black folks. Another thing the district attorney can do, they can ask for unsupervised probation or no probation at all. They can end that probation whenever they want to. How many of us have lost the right to vote? How many of folks in our communities can't vote because they are still on probation and have fines and fees? Your district attorney can ask for those fines and fees to be waived. There are places that happens all over the state of North Carolina. There are so many tools at the disposal of your district attorney to make your criminal justice system more fair and to combat so much of the baked-in systemic and institutional racism that exists. And if we elect the right district attorney, we ask them the right questions, and we hold them accountable to the right policies, we can drastically change the way the criminal justice system looks in our community.
Right. And the district attorney, it sounds like they got more power than the judges. It sounds like you said that. So they don't have to check in with anyone to do any of these things.
In theory, they have to check in with judges. In theory, the judges are in charge. But anyone who has spent time inside of a Wake County courtroom, or any courtroom for that matter, knows that very often your judge is going to acquiesce to what the district attorney says. When it's time to set bond, obviously that is the role of the judge. But the judge in real life is going to look to that DA and ask that DA, what do you want me to set this bond at? And very rarely does a judge differentiate from what the DA asks for. And these are things that we know for example, speeding tickets. Right? How many of us have been in 101 in Wake County with a speeding ticket, waiting in that long line to talk to a DA? The reality is your district attorney has the power to say anybody who was doing 10 or 15 miles over the speed limit, I'm dismissing all of these. That's a real thing.
Brother, if I could chime in, right? Because, what Attorney Don said, I think is so important as far as the power that the district attorney has, right? And, me have going through the system myself and having to deal, with the legal side of things. I know what she say to be true, but the unfortunate thing is, that I didn't know that when I was on the inside, like so many other brothers and sisters don't know. Because, when you're sitting there waiting in the county jail, you hear so many people say they're going to hit me with the, excuse my language, they're going to hit me with the bitch.
See, I didn't say that because I was trying to be good, but that's what we call
the
it.
habitual.
Right.
Right? And so the thing of it is, we don't even have the knowledge or understand that the DA don't have to basically hit us with the habitual criminal. And a lot of times the attorneys and the public defendants, they don't even make, whoever their client is that they're representative aware, that you don't necessarily have to get 7 years for habitual, whatever it is, right? And so this type of information, and thank you, Attorney Don and Dr. Kim, because I think it's so, important and valuable in what y'all are doing, getting out there fighting for our young people and fighting for our community and really just educating the community on how we can protect ourselves, when we find ourselves in unfortunate situations like getting locked up. But I think that, it's important for us to understand that, we can't just give in to the system and sign plea bargains, because that's what happens 9 times out of 10. We feel if we take a plea bargain, we're going to get less time, when a lot of times they might not even, have a lot of evidence. So, the justice system, of course, it has to be, turned around so that there's true justice, because, I feel in my heart that wherever there's injustice, that there can never be justice. And we are the ones who suffer, from the law more than anyone.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you that just this week, one of Emancipate NC has a team of attorneys. Not many of us. We're only about 10. Well, the whole organization is only about 10 people, but we show up in a very mighty way. And last week in Wake County, we were representing a man who had gone through, oh my gosh, probably 10 or 15 public defenders. Nobody wants to deal with this man. Why? Because he advocates for himself. He believes in his own innocence, and he doesn't want to get railroaded by the system.
Right.
Yeah.
People like that are the folks that usually end up at Emancipate NC. People who have nowhere else to turn.
Right.
So he came to us. Now let me be clear. My attorney got appointed. My attorney, his name is Dylan Sharp. Dylan got appointed to this case on Monday. Asked for a continuance on Monday because he had just been appointed that day. The judge said no. Your client has had all these continuances and attorneys beforehand. Nope, we're not continuing it. You're going to trial today. Okay, that was Monday. Yeah. Monday afternoon, they start picking a jury. Okay, Dylan says, the DA is offering this terrible plea, which, and even me, I'm gonna be honest with you, even me, I was like, sir, the charge that we're facing is assault on a law enforcement official with causing injury and injury to personal property. We're in Wake County, right? The chances that you're going to get a jury that's going to let you off on this, they are not very high, right? Maybe we should consider this plea deal. The attorney on my team, and that's why you need young people around you, because see, I'm old and I done got soft, and I'm risk averse. And this young man said, no ma'am, no, Miss Dawn, respectfully, nah, I can beat this, because these charges are garbage. Let me tell you what, Friday, we did a whole week of trial. Friday, he got 2 not guilty verdicts.
Wow.
That boy got him off on all of those charges.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
2 not guilty.
Yeah.
But the reality is that doesn't happen often, and it only happens when you have lawyers who are unafraid to fight the system.
That's right.
And that is the power that Emancipate NC brings to the ecosystem here in North Carolina, is that we create a safe space for lawyers to fight the fight that they want to fight. Right?
Absolutely.
Not the fight that they have to fight because they got to eat. Not the fight that they have to fight because they're afraid of retaliation in the courthouse. Because they going to get paid. Dylan going to get paid no matter what right now. You understand what I'm saying? But we need more of our lawyers who are willing to take those kinds of stands. We need more of our lawyers to have the courage of our conviction and to fight back against these BS charges. Because there's no way, like the charge that this man was facing was ridiculous. And not for nothing, this has been going on with this particular man. I'm not going to say his name, but with this particular man for years. They have been terrorizing him. Right? Law enforcement has been terrorizing him. The district attorney office has been terrorizing him for years and has destroyed his life. Right? This victory was a mighty, mighty blow, but he still has to do so much work to rebuild his life. So we need everybody to be there. And when I talk about self-sustaining systems, this is what I mean. Now I'm going to say something else real quick. Emancipate NC is an organization that don't take money from the government. All of the money that we take is from private donors, individual donors, and from philanthropic organizations. Well, right now in Trump's America, don't nobody want a black woman-led organization that's fighting for black people to have no money.
Tell on it. Tell
Right?
it. Tell it.
So we are facing a serious funding crunch. But here's what I'm saying to everybody who is under the sound of my voice. Self-sustainability means investing in the people who are fighting for you.
That's right.
So I'm going to ask everybody who is listening to go to emancipatenc.org and make a donation to sustain the work that we're doing, because when you need us, we're going to answer. But the only way we can answer is if you're supporting us. And the only way we can do this work in an unapologetic way is if our money isn't tied to white folks.
I'm glad you said that, because, that was a question I was just going to ask, and that is, who is really behind Emancipate North Carolina, NC. And I'm glad that you put that out there, for everybody to contribute, because we definitely, need warriors,
Yes.
attorneys, and, sisters like Dr. Kim out there fighting the fight that has to be fight when we're talking about institutional and systemic racism. Understanding that racism is supposed to be the number one hate crime in the United States,
Come on.
but it doesn't apply when it comes to us as African Americans. It just, basically applies, to everyone else. Just like, when we talk about reparations, how so many other, nations of people who have been done wrong over the course of history receive reparations, but yet it's something still that we just talk about, but we really haven't gotten any closer to receiving it was justly ours
Well,
as a people.
Let me also piggyback off of that, Brother Kevin
Yes.
and Attorney. If we go back to what the U.S. Department of Justice puts on paper, it's clearly not what they mean in action. And if Black America believes that they're going to survive in this country, we better rewrite history and do it now.
Yes.
And I'm sending out that note to everyone that says we have to rewrite justice. We have to redefine justice for us. We cannot wait for America to give us anything. And we have to put our support behind organizations that do justice.
Right.
The real justice, the one that you can call on at 3 o'clock in the morning and have an attorney hold the phone and breathe while the police is trying to jump. Listen, I've been there with
Hey, Dr. Kim is going to call me at 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock in the morning. Excuse me, the young people. Right, listen, we have been in the trenches. I'm in the Uber while she is on the phone while I'm getting to a crime scene to make sure the police don't violate someone's rights.
Right.
It's the real justice that nobody wants to talk about. And so that is why we have to make this the model. This is the real justice that we are talking about, not this fake justice that change with the weather or change with an administration.
That's right.
I hear people to this day saying, well, it's going to get better in 4 years. Says who? To the Black man.
Right.
How many people do we lose in between that 4 years? Could it be your son? Is that an okay statement to make when every last one of our people are at risk now for losing your job just to say the words DEI or CRT? You can't even mention these words without being targeted in your profession.
Yeah.
So, and going back to what was said is they're holding people hostage, their livelihood hostage, if you believe in anything other than what they're pushing. That is treason in itself. When you cannot even freely think because someone is telling you that if you even say those things in this arena, you are subject to losing your job. That's serious. That's very serious.
And y'all made some valid points there. You mentioned the CRT. You were saying something about the habitual. You were like majority of our people will get the habitual, and the other side
Just doesn't.
They just doesn't.
No.
So
and let me just be clear. That is not data that anybody is necessarily tracking. You can't find it anywhere, right? Because each district attorney is like each prosecutorial district is like a little fiefdom, right? And each DA does what they want to do. Right? So there's no statewide monitoring of what is happening on a statewide level as far as charging trends and things like that. That doesn't exist.
Right. So each county, they functioning under their own beat.
However they want.
However the DA feel at this day. If he had his period last night, then he might excuse me.
Nope,
Queens
I'm with you. Or if he got into a fight with his wife or whatever, whatever happened, something is different, right?
Yeah.
And they just having a bad day. Or if they look at that child, because let's talk about marijuana charges, for example, right? Here in Wake County, we have you can't throw a rock and not hit a major university in Wake County, right?
Right.
Y'all think that them children on NC State's campus
Tell on it.
are not smoking weed and carrying on and doing all kinds of things
And popping
all up and through them dorms.
Popping pills.
Right?
Yeah.
But they are doing what? They are being kids. They are experimenting. They are good they are good children who have their whole lives ahead of them. Right? There is nothing different happening. The use of marijuana is no different across socioeconomic or racial backgrounds.
That's true.
However, it is only prosecuted and criminalized and becomes an albatross around the necks of black folk.
Wow.
It's true.
Yeah, that's why.
It's true. Tell on it.
Yeah.
You know,
And that again is another function of your district attorney.
I want to. Yeah, that's
can I
something.
listen? North Carolina State University had 10 overdose on fentanyl.
Wow.
You think it made the news?
No.
Not at all.
And when the state allocated funds to the various counties for Narcan and all of their initiatives, they basically designated where they would put the Narcan. And it is in places such as North Carolina State University, when New Bern looks like a train wreck of addiction. You can't even stop at a stoplight without seeing addictions everywhere. However, you go into a Valero corner store,
Right.
you don't see Narcan posted.
No, right.
So again, here we are, left to die, left to basically kill ourselves, while all of the money and the funding and the resources and the justice and the treatment, even the words is used, like she said, differently when they address them. We're criminals. When you look at them, they're addicts. They are, they need to be treated. And so when you have that money, that funny money that the elite have, that can pay for good treatment, that can pay for their child to go away. When they just closed down Ray, give me the name of the addiction place, one of the only ones that we had in the county off Sunnybrook, Wayside. They just closed that, and that was I was dropping off people off the street
Right.
to get help. They only allowed them to stay there for 2 weeks, and it's voluntary, so the people was coming in and out. But if their children are hit with an addiction, they can pay for them to go away in lush places. Oh, it's horrific. The
What is
differences.
Narcan? What's Narcan?
Narcan is basically the remedy
To bring them back to
For
life.
overdose.
for overdose. And we'll go back even Attorney Don, and I know brother you would know Curtis Mangum, who they allowed to swallow his drugs. They didn't offer him any overdose
They being
medication.
RPD.
RPD, thank you, Raleigh Police Department. Of some of those names are also on other dead bodies cases. Instead of taking him to the hospital, which was 1.5 miles away on Rose Lane, they took him to the nearest precinct at Crosslink and continued to strip search him, a.k.a. continued to criminalize him. And once they found nothing, then they allowed the ambulance to take him. So that is the treat. We're getting two different types of responses. Yes, you have first responders, but what are your first responders doing? And that is what we have to stay conscious about and putting out in the public, because everybody that's responding first ain't responding right.
And that's why we also have to be very cognizant of creating our own systems, right?
I love
Listen, there were I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we should allow the state to off the hook on providing the services that they're supposed to provide. But what I am saying is that only a fool keeps doing the same thing and expects a different outcome.
Right.
Now, we can't keep relying entirely on them to take care of us when we know full well that is not what is going to happen, that their best interest is not our best interest.
Right.
And, less than 3 generations ago, these are concepts that black folks knew.
That's
We
true.
understood, right?
Right.
That's
No black people 3 generations ago would have called the police and thought the police was going to help them, right?
That's
Because we knew that the police was an arm of white supremacy,
Right.
Yes.
right? We knew that the police was an arm of the Klan.
true.
No black person 3 generations ago would have said that so and so's Miss Geraldine's grandson has to go to college, and he got to get on this bus and go somewhere. Everybody is cooking some fried chicken and putting it in that basket and putting it in that bag to make sure that baby can eat.
That's right.
We have got to get back, and we have got to take accountability for how far we have gotten away from what we know is right for our people, and to take care of each other and to take care of ourselves. And we've got to come back to what we know.
That's right.
Yeah, we got to be self-sufficient as a people.
That's
and
right.
it takes a village, just like you were just saying. I wanna and I heard Emancipate NC doing great things. So what I want to know is, I don't want to sound vicious or anything, but I want to know how do you, because I know y'all take the y'all got the, what's the oath that all attorneys take to uphold to officers of the court, whatever y'all got to do.
Yeah.
So how do you function around that? But and then what I really want to know is like the attachments like that public defenders have with the DA, and if are they working hand in hand, that type of thing. My own curiosity for this people.
Okay, so number one, we hold. I want to go back to words do not have objective meanings necessarily, right? And the way you interpret any phrase is going to depend on who you are, what your lived experience is, whatever. Emancipate NC is an organization that is always going to approach our work in a way that maximizes our power and the power that we have to help amplify the power of Black folks and to amplify the power of freedom, working class people, right? That is what we do. So we use our oath. Our oath says that we are supposed to be stewards of the court. We are supposed to uphold justice, and we are supposed to defend the Constitution. Well, that's what we do very, very vigorously all the time. No one can say that we aren't doing that. Now, the way we interpret the Constitution and the way that justice looks in our imagination isn't the way that it looks in mainstream imagination. We doing the same thing, it just show up real different, right?
Yeah.
And also because we know the systems well enough, and we are not just a team of lawyers. We have lawyers, but just as important on our team are, is a Kerwin Pittman or a Dadon, people who have served a decade inside of a cage, right? People who have real lived experience with these oppressive systems. A Jatoya Potts who lost her children to a racist ass system. To a racist system, simply because somebody decided that she wasn't, as a Black woman, as a Black mother, she didn't deserve to raise her own children, right? Those are the people that also make up my team. Those are the people that also inform the work of Emancipate NC. And through having that 360-degree look at the problem and approaching the problem from that 360-degree angle, that is why we are able to get the wins and fight the fight that we fight, because we understand, not just from an academic place, not just from a lived experience place, but when you mesh those two things together and combine them with innovative thoughts, with the radical reimagination of liberation, without allowing anyone to put restraints on that.
That's right.
You can move mountains. But that takes courage, right?
Yes.
It takes courage.
Yes.
Let me ask a question right quick
Yes.
to Attorney Don, right? Because really I like everything that y'all are doing in Emancipate, North Carolina.
Yes.
But I also understand the power of organization and organizing and mass organization, right? And mass organizing. I think that really should be, one of our major goals as a people, as African people, Black people, African Americans, and that is to organize around justice, right?
That's right.
Because, as we was talking the other day and you had said something about creating the world we want through justice, I agree with it 100%. And so my question is, what can we do to really get out in the community and so that we can really get, our brothers and sisters in our communities behind not only Emancipate North Carolina, but, even really fighting for real change, really becoming, freedom fighters, the way you're a freedom fighter, the way Dr. Kim a freedom fighter, Brother Essence, really fighting for justice and creating, not only a better day for us today, but more importantly, our future generations.
So I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to pass it to Kim. Because, first of all, white supremacy is a master gaslighter, right? They're going to tell us how we supposed to do everything,
That's
even
right.
get our freedom,
That's
right?
it.
And one of the ways that they have us believing that the only way we can get freedom is through masses of people all
That's
working
right.
together,
Teach.
moving in the same direction, thinking the same way, and without all of those people moving in the same direction, nothing can happen. Well,
You better teach
the
my
reality
husband.
is that no change in history has ever happened that way.
That is right.
Right? They love to rewrite history. Let me tell you something. In the 60s, when Dr. King was alive, who we love so much, you know who couldn't stand Dr. King? Black folks, black grown people.
It's true.
We did. He didn't back Dr. King. It is always the children who are fighting the revolution. It is
Right,
always
that's right.
the children, because
Yeah.
grown folks got stuff to lose, right? Now, white folks have rewritten history and rewritten who Dr. King is to us, right? To make him more palatable, to make us think that we just supposed to sit down and be quiet. That's a whole different conversation. But I'll say all that to say this. Organizing can be as big as 5,000 people showing up for a protest in downtown Raleigh, or as small as
Come on.
20 people showing up in a room to have a conversation about what's next. Let me tell you something. There is nobody in Raleigh that organizes, that works harder for the people than Dr. Kimberly McTiernan. Do you understand me? Because Kim ain't turning down a phone call. She answering. Everybody in Southeast Raleigh knows somebody or has somebody who done lived on Kim's couch,
Right.
got Kim help. Kim done buried somebody's child, found houses so that somebody's baby didn't get taken. That is what community organizing is about.
That's
right?
right.
That is what it's about. It is about everybody doing what they can do where they are.
Yes.
Right? So I'm going to pass it to Kim to talk about what she does and how she helps me help her.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Phenomenal. I tell you what, this is a sister to me indeed. I don't even know. I'm not going to cry because that's not the place for this.
Girl, cut it out.
But I will tell you this. She's defined justice for us, the community, this country, the world, as to how it's supposed to be. And it's us going back to each other's couch with simplicity. You know, like she said, it's not the big things that matter. Because let me say this, as the executive director of Raleigh PAC, when we were fighting to get body cameras and fighting with a black chief of police to convince her that we needed body cameras, as if she didn't live through the civil rights era. When we finally got what they gave, because it's definitely not what we asked, now we're faced today with body cameras that you can shut off and on. We asked for open, transparent, all the time. We did not get that. They gave us $5 million. So again, here we are fighting about what is given versus what we've asked. We cannot allow a system to keep giving us their version of justice. That's the first thing. Don't take our tax dollars and give us something that doesn't work. And black people have been so accustomed to just taking what has been put on the table. That's why it was so important that Dylan, her attorney, says, oh no, we're not stopping here. We have to get what is necessary, because if we stop here, we'll be stopping for the rest of our lives.
Right.
And we cannot, I mean, look at what happened even during the George Floyd movement. Everybody, quote unquote, received what they thought was going to be justice that we wanted. To look up, and DEI was taken off the table of many corporations within 2 years of him dying, if not 2 months. We cannot get stuck in massive amounts of hoopla, the jargon of corporations and legalese. We have to define justice for ourselves.
And I also want to just jump in a
Go
little
right
bit because
ahead.
we talk a lot about self-sustainability, and in these nonprofit activist circles, we use the same kind of
Jargon and
stupid
lingo.
jargon all the time. Like self-sustainability, self-independence, right? But we don't have real examples of what that is. And let me just be clear, y'all. It sounds scary, but it's really not. Because let me be clear. Kim talked about those body cams. Those body cameras that we fought so hard for.
Yes.
All over the country we fought for. We thought it was going to be a game changer. And then what happened? It didn't change the game. You know what did change the game? When we start pulling out our own phones
Yes.
and recording.
Come on.
That is what self-sustainability
It's
looks
true.
like. That is what self-sufficiency looks like.
Yes.
When we start pulling out our phones and creating our own records,
That's right. Come on.
then the game starts changing.
It's true.
Then we get George Floyd. Then we get this uprising of quote unquote consciousness around the horrors of law enforcement and how they have been inflicting these terrors on black communities all over the country for hundreds and hundreds of years. That didn't come through body cam footage. That came through us being self-sufficient, pulling out those cell phones and recording ourselves.
That's right.
That is what it looks like.
Right.
It doesn't have to be anything very grandiose. We just have to recognize it when we see it and then name it what it is.
That's true.
That is self-sufficiency.
It's true.
Taking the power of the imagery into our own hands is self-sufficiency.
It's true.
That is what it takes for us to make major leaps. That is always what it's going to take for us to make major leaps towards black liberation and full autonomy.
And let me say this, Attorney Blagrove actually sits, both her and Karen Pittman sit on the Raleigh Police Accountability Community Task Force, of which I'm the executive director. But what I chose to do in this moment is because the silence is so loud amongst our people, is that we have to rewrite the narrative to say what we want in this utopia of liberation. Because liberation can't be something they give to us.
That's
because
right.
they're not going to give us liberation.
Because they can't. It ain't theirs to give.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely. And that is what our focus is on now, is we won't ask them for another thing. We will demand what we need based off of our existence on this patch of land called America. And that is what we're defining. We actually, me and the attorney are in the middle of one of these fights, as you well know, is never a dead moment or a dull moment, but addressing how this country actually started and what are we fighting? Are we fighting the police or are we fighting white supremacy?
That's right.
And then we're so quick to be like, well, I'm going to call the police. Well, really what you're calling is a white supremacy. White supremacy. And I'm looking at the laws of the city of Raleigh. The city of Raleigh and our cities are basically, they were fashioned to hire their own bounty system paid by our tax dollars. And that is what the police is. When we talked about, I think when we had our meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about and we showed documentation on gentrification. It started out with crime in Blythe. Well, as soon as you say crime in Blythe, that's probable cause for police officers to go in and basically seize your community under gentrification. So basically, they're the bounty hunters for white supremacy and the white elite and the whole new tax base of white people. But we're just paying into it with them. We're basically funding our own demise.
That's right.
And it is time for us now to even challenge the charter of the city of Raleigh. It is time for us to say, you haven't worked for us, you've worked for them. You've taken our tax dollars and beat the hell out of us. That's it.
Them ones in the Bible, I think we can get away
say-
with.
I'm going to push the envelope then.
Let's just keep on rolling. Look.
Listen, okay, hell, damnation, and fire and brimstone, okay? So we have a duty, you all. While we have a president that says that January the 6th people were POWs, well, we POWs too.
And let me also, I just
That-
want to,
yeah.
I want to touch real quick on this.
Prisons.
These systems are so rigged in ways that you can't see and you can't find. Let me talk about this real quick. So we doing jury selection in that trial that I talked about last week, where the charge is assault on a law enforcement officer causing serious injury. Let me tell y'all something. I vote in every election. Since I have been 18 years old, I have never missed an election. I vote in every election. Before I moved to North Carolina, I served on 2 juries. I have lived in North Carolina for 23 years. I have never, not one time, been summoned to jury duty.
Oh,
Not
wow.
once. While we were having it at the jury pool, when we were selecting the jury last week for the trial, where the man is facing assault on a government officer or law enforcement officer, 2 of the people that got called to jury, one of them was a lawyer who represents the Police Benevolence Association. Another one was a captain in the Raleigh Police Department. 2 people closely connected to law enforcement get called for a jury pool in a case where a man is facing assault on a government officer. And I have never been called. Not one time. Never been called.
It sounds like the jury. So they send letters out for jury, then they're gonna select. They send maybe 50, 60, then they're gonna select 12. So it's already a plan on how who they're
they
sending.
rigged that too,
yeah,
right?
like wow.
Listen,
Wow.
and if you don't have an attorney that is unafraid to fight the system, they not challenging those jurors like that. They not finding out who those people are.
That's true.
Dylan, this judge, we went into this trial, and this judge told this jury, these folks, we won't be here longer than 2 or 3 days. We haven't even started jury selection yet.
Yeah.
Dylan was like, what?
Right.
I'm talking, when I tell you that boy took a whole day for jury selection, I mean, ask each and every juror, tell me how you decide when somebody is telling the truth. Right? Each and every juror. That's how you figure out how you're going to keep who you're going to keep. But that takes time. Now, the whole time that's happening, the judge is frustrated, the DA is frustrated, everybody pissed with him, right? Because this supposed to be a 2-day trial.
And that's what he said.
And he said, "Oh well, I don't work for you. I work for him. I work for my client.
Come on.
And as a result, I got to do whatever I got to do to make sure that this man gets the best outcome. Right?
Wow.
Every lawyer should have the space to do that. Every lawyer does not. Right? But we do. The ones that work for us, the ones that emancipate us, we gonna do that. We gonna ride like that. Now we can't. Look here, y'all. Don't be calling me. We can't. We ain't got but 2 lawyers that do criminal trials. We can't do everybody's. Don't be calling me. Especially only for we only could be here for the folks that at their wits end. But your public defender works for you, just like Dylan works for his clients, just like we work for ours. You tell them folks you ain't taking no plea. They got to take it to trial. And they better fight for you.
Say that again, attorney.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to take that plea if you don't want to. Sorry.
So 2 different, I think, and that what we're talking about is 2 different systems.
That's right.
We're talking about a system of justice and then a system that says we're just trying to get by. We're trying to pay our mortgage. We're trying to start our career. Well, for some, this is a career, but for some, this is a lifestyle, and they actually believe in justice. And I can tell you, we don't call on nobody else. We don't want to know what others is going on because we already know. The pattern has been set, and we need her to train other attorneys on how to do exactly, because it's a heart issue. It's about the heart. And that is why our people are so despondent, because they don't see justice. They don't see hope. They're numbing themselves with all kinds of drugs and, music and anything that can just temporarily hold them together. And to us, in what we consider to be a first world country, that should not be said of us. And when we can go to space and claim land on Mars.
Right.
How is it that when you come back to Earth, the black community is always the last to receive any kind of justice or any kind, you know, even in our neighborhoods right now. I was looking at Southeast Raleigh where Rock Quarry Road is. You can see where they put $2.6 million of bicycle lanes in our community.
Mm-hmm.
But right beside it is a Fresenius Healthcare Dialysis Center for black folk. Look at the variations. You don't have to go to a court system to see the injustice.
That's right. That's right.
And also,
Yeah.
we have to stop a lot. Let's talk about the bike lanes, right?
Right.
Because how many of us, y'all, we got to do these things. We got to get our butts on these bikes and ride bikes, right?
Yes,
We ain't
yes.
all got to. You ain't got to have a car that's tricked out. Now, don't get me wrong. I like a nice car. I got a nice one in the parking lot. But all of us ain't got to have that. Somebody can. It is okay for you to ride your bike
It's
to
true.
work and back. It is okay for you to use them bike lanes. It is okay for you to do those things. For us to, if that is what it takes
Right.
for us to free ourselves of the chains of white supremacy, then those are the things that we are going to have to be willing to do. That is the accountability. That is where the accountability comes in. We are going to have to give up some of our creature comforts in exchange for real freedom, for real community.
Mm-hmm.
Brother.
Yeah.
Good. No, go ahead on. I'll
Yeah.
come in later.
All right, yeah, because you know what they were speaking on, this sound a lot like a lot of the critical race theory.
There you go.
Yeah, and I wanted to swing around to Derek Bell first. Let me drop a little insight on Derek Bell, because he's often called the father of the critical race theory, and he was the first tenured black professor at Harvard Law School in 1971. He later gave up that position to protest racism in the hiring at Harvard Law. But he had a few like with y'all, some of the things y'all saying, he had a few tenets. I know at least 5 tenets where he actually pinpoints all of the points that y'all making. A couple like interest convergence, which states racial injustice advances only when they align with the interests of white people in power. Social constructed of race, that is, race is not biological, it's created and maintained by society. So at the root, it simply examines how racism is embedded in our laws.
Yes.
So, do you think that African American attorneys should take a deeper dive into the works of Derek Bell and study the critical race theory? Should it be taught throughout
Yes.
the system?
Yes,
schools?
I think laws, and I think they're. Let me just be clear: the whole idea of critical race theory being some type of pervasive educational system that permeates all levels of education is complete garbage. Critical race theory, the only place I took a critical race theory course, the only place I've ever seen it taught is in law school, right? Critical race theory is not something that is being espoused in elementary classrooms or high school classrooms or even on college campuses for the most part. That's the first thing. The second thing is, absolutely, I think it is imperative that, and not just black lawyers, but all lawyers understand the way our system is baked with systemic and institutional racism. Understand that our laws are designed to uphold inequitable white supremacist capitalist systems, right? They are designed, our laws are written in ways to make sure that the poorest people stay on the bottom and the richest people stay on the top. And when you understand that about the laws, then you deal with the law as the tool that it is. The law is not going to save us, right? That is a fallacy we have got to rid ourselves of. You are not going to be saved. The law is not going to give me civil rights. The law is not going to give me independence. The law is not going to give me access to better educations. All of that stuff, all of those things are dependent on how I define them and how I create them for myself. The law is not designed to be an equalizer. The law is designed to maintain the status quo. It is not designed to fix things. It is designed to make sure that the rich get richer and the poor stay poor.
That's true.
That's it. And once we understand that, even as lawyers, then we use the law in a way that is different. You approach the law in the way that is different because you have to, right? You have to understand the tool that it is. Right? It is sometimes a messaging tool. It is sometimes, and don't get me wrong, there are going to be seasons when great things happen because of legal opinions. But we also know that there is no permanency to any of those things, right? Because all of those gains that we thought we had made, it took Trump, what, 8 months to undo that?
It's true.
Right?
It's true. It's true.
Oh, go ahead.
No, please, brother.
Okay, yeah, because, you used the word permanency, right? And that's one thing I want to kind of touch on as far as Derek Bell and critical race theory. And one of the tenets was the permanency of racism, right? Basically, and that has proven true over the last 500 years, right? Another one of the tenets was that racism is not an aberration, but it's basically normal. Like what you were saying, it's baked into the fabric of this society, right? And I think that, it's a really critical analysis that Derek Bell was doing on how the law impacts African Americans in our communities, right? And one of the interesting things that I was able to find out, and shout out to Linda Darton, KCSSU's admin, when we was researching, and that was a timeline that was put together from the 1600s where they were creating laws, right, that helped to disrupt and destroy, African American lives, black people lives. These are laws that are put in not to protect and to serve, but basically to exploit, right, and oppress a people. So I think that, what Derek Bell was doing was not only was it revolutionary, but it was genius, right? Because he went within their own law to show things that can be proven. And one of the things is our lived experience, which is another tenet, how we know just by being black. And I think this kind of touches to the point of it becoming normal. We know when we wake up and we go out there in that world, and if we come into contact with white people and things of that nature, we're going to be looked at differently, right? So I think it's good, that not only our attorneys, but all of us get in tune, with what Derek Bell was doing, the work he was doing, and just how important it is so that, like Attorney Don said, we cannot expect this system to save us when they outright basically put laws together to not only exploit us, oppress us, but keep us at the bottom rung of the food chain.
Absolutely correct. And and it's always even the more detrimental when we see a system that says you won't be able to survive unless you go by way of our leadership, or the context and way in which we've set the system up. So what tends to happen is we go through their institutions, we go through their learning facilities, or we basically get institutionalized, whether we are in prison, whether we're in college, wherever we are. And we come out thinking we're going to be successful, but for who are we being successful for? Because if we'll notice that many of our people could not even talk about racial discrimination or any of those things until a George Floyd happened. Right. Then all these conversations were open for us to talk. Okay, black people, let's talk. We had little talks all over the place, And then I was hearing from some like Dr. Kim, it sounds like the talks have already been sort of pre-constructed as to what we were going to say, how we were going to address it, and how much of a solution they were going to give, or how much of that solution were we going to talk about. So again, if we don't break free from the chains of these institutions altogether, we are asking for the beating. We're asking for the lynching. We're basically giving ourselves the rope and asking them, please don't choke me with the rope that you gave me to hang myself from. Again, this is time for revolution.
That's right.
And that's what we're calling for. SOS is sending out an SOS to say it's time for the revolution. And whether you want to televise it or not, it's here.
That's right.
It is here.
So a lot of the civil rights framework, the protection, civil rights protection, their framework of the 60s, it's not going to help us nowadays, or it's not helping us nowadays.
Well, look at what happened with Brown versus the Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that if we went and sat down in their institutions and ate lunch with them and peanut butter jelly sandwich and got their teachers, I can tell you we look worse on paper now.
Yeah.
They said we read better. We were thirsty for education at the turn of, Emancipate. Once we got emancipated, we started building. My grandfather, Lizzie, you all hear about Lizard Lick?
Yeah.
They built their own churches and their own institutions inside those churches. And they were just as sufficient as teachers and as students. Today, we have, let's just bring it home. We have 5 alternative schools under Wake County. All of them is in the 27610 zip code.
Talk about it.
27610 zip code. The other one is Connections. That's on Buck Jones Road in Cary. That still has a higher population of African Americans. Right. So again, Buck Jones' daddy is Nathaniel Jones, who had 10,000 acres of land that he stole. And my grandparents was on that slave plantation.
Get out of town.
So listen, my folks are some kin to Buck Jones and Cary. So look at where our people are. When my grandmother died, where she died before she went to a rehab center was on Mordecai Plantation. Right. In the apartments owned by the City of Raleigh Housing Authority. So we didn't go very far if my grandmother is dying on Mordecai Plantation. Don't talk to me about justice, because I'll give you the raw deal.
Yeah.
And that part is coming up. So, again, what are we policing? What are you doing with our wealth and our health and our stability? And then you ask our children to behave in this climate. They don't even know what justice is anymore. It's no reality. The reality has been shattered. Mm-hmm. Remember now, when we first used to ask for justice, we knew to march. We knew to gather at the church. This generation is finding it very hard. When I look at us march down Martin Street for George Floyd, and the people that need justice most is sitting on the porch looking. I'm marching with white people that's giving us water bottles and trail mix. Come on. Dr. Kim, you need some trail mix. Am I right, Dawn?
Yes, Lord.
We marching in the hood for their justice. It's the white kids who's pulling down the statue. Look at how bad the roles have reversed that our people don't even know. Because if it was that easy, we would have been done it. But we know we just can't march up to the Capitol and yank down them.
No, because the ramifications for us are very different.
Different, okay.
I like to speak on that because I think that that's important, because I think it's all dealing with our consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And consciousness is important, right? And if we don't have a high level of consciousness, we're really not going to understand the issues of what's taking place to us. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons that one of the big pushes that we do at KCSSU is the knowledge of self, understanding who we are with the philosophy of Mayat, which is dealing with truth, justice, and righteousness. And I think that that's really important, our values and our philosophies.
That's right.
Because when we're talking about justice, if we're not talking about truth, and if we're not talking about righteousness, we're really not talking about anything.
That's true.
Right? And we know, through our lived experience and through history, what has been done to us, right? So I think that, unfortunately, they like to keep us reeling on our heels. And I feel like we need to reverse that and go on the offense and put them on their heels.
That's right.
Because a lot of times they want to examine us, they want to evaluate us, and they want to say we had these mental health issues and things of that nature, when we should be turning it around and pointing to them for the atrocities. Because who not only hangs somebody but brings their whole family to watch it? That's a mental health illness and disease. And I think that, we really, I like what everybody's saying as far as how we have to define our own justice and truth. And this is important, right? Because we know that the truth is not within them. They've proven that time and time again. So we really can't expect any justice from them. The justice is going to come from us. As the sisters have said, right, they can't liberate us. That's on us, right? And the number one thing that needs to be liberated is our minds. And I've said this before, right? One of our great leaders out of South Africa, Steve Biko, he said, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed, right? So when we have brothers and sisters on the porch who are watching this movement, they don't understand, right? And I think it's the responsibility of those of us who are conscious to get out in the community so we can help our brothers and sisters really understand, what's going on in the world. And then we stop fighting one another. And, like I had stated earlier, we could become freedom fighters for justice and humanity.
Mm-hmm. And that's about, and listen, part of the reason that our folks sit on them porches and watch is because we didn't survive all this time in America without recognizing the hustle when we see it.
You smart. That's smart.
That
is
we know instinctually when we are invited into a space and when we are not.
Right.
Yes.
Many of us organizers, quote unquote, right? And many of us community leaders, quote unquote, have no intention of inviting the community in. They don't want the community to come in, right? They don't want to solve the problem. Because guess what? If we solve the problem, then I can't get a check, right?
That's true.
Our babies know a hustle when they see one, right? And the same reason they sat up on them porches is the same reason that when it hit the fan, they gonna call Kim or I'm gonna get a text,
right?
Because they know who to go to.
That's right.
When they need real help.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
If they don't see themselves reflected in our movement,
That's true.
That's our fault.
That's good. That's good.
That's us. Right? That's not them. If we're not inviting them in, that's us.
That's true.
And those babies have a deep sense of instinctual
That's right.
survival skills.
Yes, indeed.
They recognize BS when they see it. They know a hustle when they see it. Listen, I can't tell y'all how many times when I was practicing before I became the executive director of Emancipate, I worked for an organization called North Carolina Prisoners Legal Services. Right?
That's what
I represented 37,000 at the time North Carolina incarcerated people. Right? And I would work on post-conviction cases.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I would go in to visit one of our clients, and it would be me and some other white attorney, because there was never more than 2 black attorneys on the post-conviction team ever at one time. We go in, and this little boy would see us come. These boys would see us come in, and everybody's a little boy. They grown men, but everybody a little boy to me because I'm everybody's mama. But we go in, and they start weaving this. They see that white lawyer. That white do-gooder lawyer, and they start weaving that after-school special tale that they know that white after-school lawyer want to hear.
That's right.
About their hard life and how they was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
True.
They just had one good white person to believe in them. And I would have to say, you know what? Can you give us 1 minute?
Right.
And I would say to my colleague, could you go over there and let us talk by ourselves?
Yeah.
And I would have to say to them, boy.
Right.
If you don't stop playing with me, I don't care what you did.
That's right.
I need to know the truth, though. You can't tell me foolishness because these white folks here and think, boy, we the same. Stop playing with me.
Right.
So tell me what happened. Yeah. All right, Miss Dawn, this is what happened for real. And then we get to. You understand what I'm saying? Like that is, but that is a mechanism.
I'm about to go.
Of our brilliance, right? That is a mechanism of our survival. We know how to give the system what the system wants so that we can get what we need, right? What we have to do is give our children and our people a safe space where they don't have to hustle no more.
That's right.
Where they could just live and stand in their truth, where they're not trying to game the system to get what the system is giving, where they have an opportunity to stand in their truth and get what they deserve.
That is correct.
Right? And accountability, y'all. We got to be accountable to ourselves. We have to be accountable to each other. You know what I mean? Like, we had, I was proud as a fool to have all them people out there marching. That felt good. It felt like we done brought all these people out. But the reality is, if I don't go home and think, Who did I miss and why did we miss them?
Right.
Who didn't join in? Who didn't see themselves?
That's right.
Who didn't hear their voice?
Right.
And if the answer to that question is my folks, is the folks that I claim to be advocating for,
That's right.
then I got to go back to the drawing board. The problem is me.
That's true.
The problem ain't them. The problem ain't the message. Or the problem ain't the fact that they not picking up the message.
That's
The
right.
problem is I ain't giving them nothing they want to pick up.
But
And you adjust.
attorney, let me say I gotta get in here because let me say this. I was looking in their eyes as I always do. And they're always asking without saying, is it safe to come out?
That's right.
Is it safe? Because if not, I'm going to continue to hustle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue to use CPN numbers to get my apartment. I'm going to continue to use both baby daddies, and I'm going to pin the tail on the donkey or the ass. His ass is in the Bible.
You mean a donkey?
I'm going to pin it. I'm going to live the hustle lifestyle, which is subordinate to who we really were from the beginning.
Right.
We are a just people. We are righteous people. In fact, we really didn't even need, our culture don't need 1,000 laws to hold us accountable. We came up under values and traditions and respect and honor. We didn't need you to write 10,000 words and then in the middle say and but so I can trick you up on and you missed the and the shall. So now you got 2,000 years. And if you don't find that and the shall in the paperwork, your post conviction gonna be upheld. This kind of stuff is foolishness for people who are mentally retarded. You know why?
You're not supposed to say that.
Sorry, sociopaths. Anybody, like Brother said, that could tell you that they would invite their children and then go to church on the next day and say they were Christians. Come on, you couldn't be close to religion at all. I'm just over it at this point. Hold your Bible upside down and say 2 Corinthians. Because at the end of the day, you're a pedophile, you're all of these things, and you're a mass murderer. That's why your little children go inside these buildings and act like a plum fool. Our boys do drive-bys. They running while they shooting. Yours walk in. 2 different people. He can do it by himself because your nation has already supported him and gave him a water bottle or a hamburger or a Happy Meal. He don't need 5 boys from the hood to support him so they can blame each other. He open. He know who did it. He ain't even telling you he didn't do it. He walking right in with no mask on. Again, America has to have a day of reckoning, and it is time for us to call them on the carpet, and we judge them for who they are, because we can't keep living under this lie. We can't comply another day with the lie, and I will continue to say that's my new motto.
Keep talking it.
Yes.
Keep talking that talk.
Yes.
Brother Essence,
Yes.
if I may, I think that, because Attorney Don, she was speaking on, when they was mobilizing, right?
Yes.
And I think that, mobilization is important as well as organization. And as, one of our great revolutionaries, Kwame Ture, he spoke on it, he taught on it different, because he was talking about how mobilizing and mobilization is really based around an issue, like say basically what happened with George Floyd. But he was saying, organizing is different because you're in it for eternity.
That's right.
Because and you're
That's
planning
right.
for in eternity. So when you can mobilize and organize, that's a plus. So I think that when we mobilize, we have to mobilize with the intent of organizing, to build our own systems. And I really like what Attorney Don said about our systems, because at KCSSU it's committed cultural science and system of unity. And us having our own system is so important, especially, when we understand that we were the first ones basically to come up with, we might not call them laws, but, divine principles that we ought to live on.
That's right.
And it's just like basically, in African traditions, when we go from one stage of life to another, when we transition, right, the weighing of the heart ceremony. Right, so to see if you're going to be able to go to the next realm, your heart has to be just as light as the feather of Maya, right? And the feather of Maya represents truth. And what our heart represents is our conscience, our actions, and our deeds. So if our heart is just as light or lighter than the feather, we're able to go through the next realm. Now, if we was to place the heart of America, the United States of America, on the scales of Maya, it would be very heavy.
Yes.
And it would have to basically, in a sense, be eaten by Ammon, right? Which is a creature, a lion, a hippopotamus, and a crocodile, right? And then they have to basically, in a sense, resurrect so that they can basically go through it again and correct their wrongs, right? I think that, when we understand our traditions as Africans and the knowledge and wisdom that our ancestors had, and that's why I think it's so important, for us to go back further than 1619, to travel back thousands and thousands of years and learn about brothers like, great men like Imhotep, one of the fathers of philosophy and, of course, the father of medicine, right? But not only Imhotep, but how Imhotep it also represents a group of people. I think that's very important, right? And so when we're talking about laws, and we're talking about traditions and things of that nature, if we spend all of our time here, looking at the way things are done in the United States, we're going to be discombobulated and confused. But once we travel back in Sankofa to understand that we come from a great lineage of people who have been done wrong, right? Then we start to understand that there is a reason to really understand history. Because like Marcus Garvey said, a person without history is like a tree without roots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Brother Kevin, let me add to that. Let me say this. I think one of our problems is that they have us start history from here.
Right.
So you don't see you see yourself as a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you fight is how to get out of your enslavement. And the master.
Right.
And the white man and whomever, and justifiably so. But when do we get to give ourselves the credit that we actually were and came from greatness? We built institutions. We built physical structures, the pyramids. And that is not repetitively spoken amongst our young people, because we're too busy trying to speak French. When we in school, y'all know in school, they're teaching our children how to speak every other language. But how many dialects are in Africa? Did they give that as a choice? Swahili covers everybody.
Yes.
Those are the things. And guess what? After we leave an HBCU, we won't even say, excuse me, this one is worthy to be put on the map, to be spoken. Give our children the option, the choice. Everybody's using the word choice. But we don't even see those things as necessary for our children. We're asking them to include us, but we don't even bring things that we could include to the table.
And the cancer of white supremacy that permeates the minds of black folks is real. It is it is a public health issue.
Yeah.
The cancer of white supremacy is a public health issue for black people. And we have got to be intentional about cutting out that cancer from our minds, and we have got to do that work every single day.
Yes.
Because let's be clear, we are swimming in an ocean where we are constantly surrounded by oppressive ideas, oppressive systems, oppressive thoughts, right? And we are sustaining our life off of these poisoned waters, these poisoned air, these poisoned thoughts. And in order to free ourselves so that we can think clearly, so that we can remember who we are, we have got to be intentional and deliberate and do the very hard work of eradicating the cancer of white supremacy from our own minds. And that is hard. That is hard work. And I'm going to be 100%. I'm going to keep it 100. I'm going to keep it a buck with y'all. Everybody ain't going to make it, right? Everybody ain't going to make it to freedom. Some of us are too sick with white supremacy that it has metastasized to the point where they are not salvageable. And that is all right. We got to reconcile ourselves with that as well. But those of us who we can save, those of us who want to be saved, those of us who want to do the work, are enough to rebuild the nation that we deserve.
Brother, I would
Yeah.
like to because Dr. Kim, she used the word Swahili, right, and she's correct, right. And shout out to my Jegna, Dr. Elijah Milko Baba Akmos, for sharing, all the information and knowledge and wisdom that he has with me. But one thing he sent me was a Swahili word, Maangamizi, right, and that goes straight to what Turner Don is talking about, being intentional and deliberate. But unfortunately, the Maangamizi is dealing with the intentional and deliberate destruction,
Yeah.
oppression, and exploitation of all black people, not only in Africa, but wherever we are on the planet. And like, Attorney Don said, we have to be intentional and deliberate, right, in dismantling white supremacy. Because if we don't dismantle it, it's going to continue to exist. And I think that, one thing I think that we really need to, hone in as, those of us who really do this fighting is on a global level, dealing with the United Nations, right? The Security Council, right? With the 5 permanent members that they have, France, Great Britain, United States, Russia, and China, right? And how that has an impact on not only global law, but national and also local law. So, I think that this thing is way bigger than when we're talking locally, state, or even national. It's international.
That's right.
Because when we remember what they consider to be the transatlantic slave trade or global Eurasian, imperialism, or human trafficking, I think it's important to know that they didn't just bring us to the United States. They took us all over the world. And basically one of the things that it did was help to fuel the global economy. So I think with that being said, another thing that we should look at, is capitalism, right? And the impact the negative impact that capitalism has had on us as a people. Because we was brought over here as human capital.
That's
And we
right.
was exploited and oppressed
right.
just for them to build their economy up. But yet they talk to us about financial literacy and things of that nature, like we don't know how to manage money when we don't have money, when we 400, 500 years behind. That's why one thing that basically we always promote, and that is for us brothers and sisters in the diaspora, which is considered the 6th region, to unite. And the diaspora consists of everybody outside of Africa, of African descent, to unite with Africa, right, and connect with Africa and understand whoever controls Africa controls the world with the resources, right? But they have us so discombobulated because, like one brother said, we didn't lose the land is still there. We lost our mind, like we're still talking about. And I think that when we understand there's 1.4 billion people on Africa and only 40 million here in the United States, that ain't even 1%. So I think that if we can consciously understand that divide and conquer and divide and rule tactic and strategy that they have used has worked to the T. So when we're intentional and deliberate, we're not only building ourselves up here, but we're building bridges with our brothers and sisters across the world.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you
And
something. That global understanding of white supremacy, though, is key. Really, it is key, and it gets lost. My family and I took a trip to Europe about, I don't know,
3 years ago.
girl, no, it's probably about 7, 8 years ago now. But I tell you what, it was life altering, in the sense that to be in the belly of white supremacy, to be in the seat of where white supremacy was birthed, it reminds you that the white supremacy that we deal with here is like the baby version.
Right.
Right? It is the baby version of what it is. That the fight that we are fighting is not centuries old. It is millennials old, right?
My Lord.
And that it is something that is, Lord have mercy. I mean, when I tell y'all, Kim knows, it took me months to unpack my trip to Europe.
That is true.
Months to unpack that trip. And I also will never go back. I don't think anybody need to. It make me look sideways at black folks who say they love it. Because why?
Right.
What is
Right.
it about it that you like so much?
Right.
I don't, because that's a different conversation. But the importance of understanding and connecting the diaspora and understanding that Western civilization
Right.
is the problem, right?
Yes.
Not just white folks in America. Western civilization is the problem, and that is a millennial old problem, right? Even before it was black folks, right? Even before it was us, when they was in that Coliseum feeding people to them dang old lions,
Right.
they all looked the same. That was them.
Right.
Right, that was even when they wouldn't let them read the Bible, they didn't want them to learn how to read.
Right.
Why? Because the we talking about capitalism and Western
Right,
civilization.
right.
Because it was important that in order for the haves to keep what they had, the have-nots needed to not have any access
exactly right.
to the have.
That is correct.
Right? That is what it is all about. It is just metastasized here in America in a form of racism.
What does that word mean?
It is metastasized means it is spread. It has
Right.
spread and grown. Here in America, the way what is the undergirding of that white supremacy is racism in a way that it is unique to America, right?
Right.
But that does not mean that uniqueness is not part of a larger global structure to control the economics, to control the resources, and to control the minds of
That's
people.
good.
Right.
That's good.
That's right.
I remember when she came back, she was traumatized.
Y'all don't understand.
She started
Right.
telling us
Like,
specifically what she encountered, and I didn't know if I wanted to hear more, but I knew I had to hear more. I had to understand. I could not hear it because it unveiled another reality for us. We think we're fighting white supremacy, but we had no clue. We had no idea how the depth, the breadth, the high, and how she made it sound as if it was so blatantly normal.
That's right.
It was so blatant but normal, which is even for us, we still get a little agitated when somebody say Negro or something, but you might not never hear that word there. But it's the level of hate, that whole, you could feel the
feel it,
yes,
Let
they
me-
didn't have to. Go
I
ahead.
can't tell y'all the whole story, but let me just suffice to say my favorite moment in Europe. My husband and my youngest daughter, Erin, and I were in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican.
Right.
And we
yes.
standing in there, and this woman says to Erin, and Erin at this point is, my children are, my children. They was raised a certain way, right?
Yes.
So she is looking for what she knows to be true, which is that black people are the cradle of civilization.
Right.
Right.
And she is looking for that all over Europe and not finding it. So by the time we get to the Sistine Chapel, she has had it. So this white woman that was on the tour with us says, they call my baby the teacher. This woman that was on the tour with us says to the teacher, this white woman, Erin says, oh, look, we looking at the Sistine Chapel. And she said, oh, look, I think that's a black person. And this white woman says, no, I think that's dirt.
Oh wow.
So, and then the lady
right.
goes, there's no Chinese people either. Maybe Michelangelo didn't know any Chinese people or black people. At which point my child says, she's 16 at the time, my child says, I don't care about Chinese people. I care about black people.
Yeah.
And that's the teacher.
And then she says, Jesus was black. In the Sistine Chapel. I thought for real we was getting ready to get thrown. I was like, Jesus, we've been had to fight our way out of here. The security guards started coming towards us. But I mean, that just to let you know, like that, it bubbled up in her so strongly that she felt like as we were standing in the Vatican, in the Sistine Chapel, in this place where all these folks is like, oh, it's so spiritual, that she needed to pronounce aloud that Jesus was black.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
To
Like,
vindicate our
it was just such a surreal moment.
my Lord.
Well, the arrogance of white supremacy,
Honey, hush your mouth.
because they know that Northern Africans ruled Spain, Portugal, Greece, Italy, they know that they ruled for hundreds of years out there.
Let me
But-
tell you, wait, let me do one more. We was on the tour, right? We in Spain. The lady keeps saying Moors. The Moors did this. The Moors did that. The Moors did this. Now we with a bunch of black folks because we all went together. So they like, when you say Moor, you mean black people, right?
Moor just
She was
mean
like
black.
the Moors,
Yes.
the Moors, the Moors. They made her say black. It made her, yes. Finally, she goes. We've been on the tour for like an hour and a half. Yes, they were black. The black people, the black Moors. Yes, ma'am. You gonna say that? But she did not want to say it. You hear me? Sorry, go ahead.
I like to chime in because you had spoke on the Vatican, right? When y'all was on the European tour, and I think this is important because y'all was in the belly of the beast, right?
Yeah.
Come
I
on.
think that we had did a show here probably about a month and a half ago, and we was talking about Pope Nicholas V, right? And basically the papal bull, which is a document. They say it's a legal document. It's also a document, basically from the Vatican, where in this document it was sent to Portugal, and it was giving Portugal permission to go into Africa and enslave anyone that was not Christian. And at that point in time, most Africans were up under, traditional spiritual systems and religious systems. So I just think it's important to understand how the role that the Catholic Church played in the transatlantic slave trade, which was a major role,
Yes.
right? And then what they were able to do was they kept doubling down with other papal bulls, right, to keep slavery going for over 400, 500 years. So I just think that, that's a really great point you made about Europe. And when you're talking about Great Britain, the British, basically they probably were, and this was from one of their own representatives, said, but they basically were the kings of imperialism. That their form of oppression and exploitation was worse than any. And right behind them is the French.
Yes.
Because Dr. Ericana Chiabor-Quo, who used to be the ambassador to the African Union to the United States, how she spoke on, and that's why they got rid of her, because she spoke on how France was getting over $500 billion from 14 different African countries, right? So that's a whole lot of exploitation. So I think that, like Attorney Don was saying, when we look at the global aspect of colonization and imperialism, right? Because colonization and imperialism is a little deeper than white supremacy.
That's right.
Right, because it didn't start off as white supremacy. Even when they started invading Africa thousands of years ago, it was just as conquest, to conquer and things of that nature. But it evolved as the years went on, and it's still evolving, even though it may not look like it is. That's why it's so important for us to focus and raise our level of consciousness as a group of people so that we can fight this global imperialism and global colonization that has been affecting us in a negative way for so long. And this is the one thing that gets me more than anything, right? And this is why I love Derek Bell so much. When he talk about, the normalcy of racism. We're sending our babies to school into a hostile environment where we know they practice institutional systemic racism and still let them convince us to put our children on some type of psychotropic drug, like the problem is with our children and not with the system and the institutions.
That's it.
Right. And just piggyback a little bit because with the Britons, you got to remember the Revolutionary War over here on this soil was Britain against Britain. So that's like that. Yeah, so that's the type of arrogance they have where they fight off each other just for control of control
But I
of
think
whatever.
it's the hypocrisy as well, because the very
definitely.
things that they said they were fighting for freedom, they was enslaving us while they was trying to get free.
Exactly.
And so again, I don't think the words of anything that comes out of their mouth should be trusted. At this point, we can't trust anything. The definitions, we watched Trump say who was a criminal and who was not. It's just amazing.
That's funny.
How you managed to kill people on January the 6th that were law enforcement. And now that you need law enforcement to march for you, you need law enforcement to invade people's cities, you need law enforcement. All of a sudden, they mean something to you. So it's almost like just use it. And I think they almost brainwashed us into, like, when we hear certain words, we just go monotone when it comes to checking that this person just used these folks as human shields, and now all of a sudden they're your best friend. Like, how fast? And I think that, to me, is a mental illness too.
It's definitely.
It's mental because you watched a man try to overthrow an entire government, and in 4 years you forgave him completely.
Right.
And not just a regular man. I'm talking about a man with 34 felonies,
Right.
a pedophile, and all sorts of things that, we in society say is wrong. But look how quick our attention span is when it is to hold people accountable. And accountability, I struggle with that word quite often.
Right.
Just to stand the fight by itself is an accountability issue. Just, all right, y'all, wake up. Do you know they're still practicing? They're still practicing these draconian behaviors.
Right.
We fought for body cameras, but our last murder, they were on body cameras killing people, and there was nothing that we could do.
Wow.
We had 5 body cameras to show from every angle. You could see it, and it still didn't make a difference because they were determined not to uphold these, place these people in a place of accountability or criminalize their behaviors. That didn't just come from a white person. This is an attorney. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning of this conversation about how do we hold the DAs accountable and who are we going to have to run for office. This happened on the watch of an African American that the city of Raleigh deliberately purchased, and I say purchased because they purchased us to front
Yes.
against each. Come on,
Yes.
If I told you the things that Attorney Blagrove and I have had to deal with from our own people, not white, that they've purchased to stiff arm us from getting into places, to having a voice.
A body cam footage, watching that body cam footage, and getting access
Go ahead,
to body cam footage. Like, we got the body cam footage, for example, we got the body cam footage, the body cameras, right? And then our General Assembly here in North Carolina created laws that made it so hard to get to that body cam footage. Can't nobody see it unless they decide you want to see it, right? I got to go in front of a judge. If Kim and I are advocating for someone who's been wronged by the Raleigh Police Department, Kim can't go in and watch that body cam footage with me. Only I can. Why? Because because I'm a lawyer.
Right.
That's the only reason.
And then ask how many of our attorneys actually will or willing to go inside of a room and see the video footage. That's like,
Well, I know y'all said to take courage earlier, so I can almost count the how many.
I mean,
But,
it's real, and we need more of us to have the courage of our own convictions. We need more of us to divest from these white systems and truly use the resource. Growing up, one of my favorite books, and I'd say it's my favorite book because my mother made me read it. That it was The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Yes.
Right?
That should be a favorite.
And The Spook Who Sat by the Door was required reading in my house as a child. It was required reading for my children. It will be required reading for their children. Right? And as Black folks who have had access to education, who have access to a certain level of privilege, we have a responsibility
yes, we do.
to use that access in a way that benefits the greater good and the liberation of our people. The Spook Who Sat by the Door literally is the blueprint for my life. It is the blueprint for my children's life.
Right.
It just is. If you've never heard of the book, I encourage you to go find it and read it. Especially you Black bourgeoisie, right?
Okay.
Because you are and we are, and I cannot differentiate myself from that class of people. We are failing our folks at such an alarming rate that it is embarrassing, right? If we use the resources that we have, even the very small percent of us who have resources, that have money, that have education, that have access. Cause right, like, cause I don't get to go in and watch body cam footage because I'm brilliant. I get to go in because the white man told them I got the right degrees and passed the right tests, so I have this piece of paper that makes me legitimate, right? And that legitimacy, white folks and the system counts on black people taking that legitimacy and them being able to use it as leverage against us fighting for our freedom.
Come on.
And that is the part that we have to disrupt.
That's right.
And so I am calling on those of us, the black bourgeoisie.
Yes,
I am calling on you to free yourselves of the fear that comes with not kowtowing to white supremacy. Free yourselves. And I listen, y'all, Jesus knows I love my little blue Jaguar that sits outside, and my husband and I worked very, very hard to create the life that we have. But I also understand that if freedom, if liberation means I got to give up that Jaguar and drive a Honda or ride a bike, Jesus, forgive me. I will. These are the things, though, that we have got to be willing to do. And if all those of us who have are not willing to reinvest in our own communities, to reinvest in establishing our own systems and creating our own safety nets, we will be lost.
So we know Emancipate NC got that fire. Are there any others, or do you know of, or what can we do to try to create others?
Yes, there are some. I mean, I don't Jesus, I don't know. But I wouldn't say that there's anybody that does it exactly like we do it. We do it a little, rough and rowdy. Which is okay. We're the organization that all the other organizations come to when they need something said that they don't want to, they scared to say out loud. They come to us and ask us to say it. That's us. We do the stuff nobody else wants to do. So in that respect, no. But are there organizations out here that are doing this work? Are there people out here that are doing this work? Absolutely. Dr. Mutarian with Save Our Sons and with Riley Patch, Marcus Bass is phenomenal with Advanced Carolina and with the North Carolina Black Alliance. There are a lot of people out there who are navigating these systems from a very spook who sat by the door place, right? But, everybody can't be yelling it from the rafters. Everybody got to know their role and play their role, right? Yes. And we got to trust each other. But in order to trust each other, black bourgeoisie, in order for the rest of them to trust us, you're going to have to give them something to trust.
Come on.
Right. I have something to say to that, right? Because you're talking about the bourgeoisie, right? The boule, right? So basically we're talking about a lot of the brothers and sisters that are in fraternities, sororities, basically, the political figures and stuff, and most of them are affiliated, right? And that's one thing, basically, that, we always speak on, and it's one of the things, that I try to challenge, the fraternities and the sororities, and that is that, like when you was talking about Western civilization, the first thing came to my mind was Western philosophy and Western psychology. And basically, like, one of our great psychologists, Dr. Amos Wilson, says, if you want to learn the Europeans' Western philosophy and psychology, just study history. It'll tell you everything, basically, what they're about. Murder, thievery, and all of those things, right? And I think that, that's very important. So when we're looking at these fraternities and sororities, it's important for us to understand that they are up under a Greek philosophy, right, which is anti-black and anti-African. So I think that's one of the roadblocks, right, because they're also used as basically gatekeepers, for the white people, for the Europeans, right? And they try to get as close to their master as possible while stepping on their own brothers and sisters, right? So serious conversations has got to be had with them because they have roles and responsibilities. Some of the greats, like W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, who was a part of fraternities, but, were Pan-Africanists, which were for all African people and did a lot of great work. And these two prominent figures are very prominent amongst the fraternities and the sororities. And I think if they really go and look back in history, they'll understand that they have a responsibility to our people. And I understand. I never liked the concept of the talented 10, right? Because I always say I want to go with the other 9, right? Instead of because I know what's within the other 9, and I know that the talented 10 just think they're talented because of where they get their knowledge and information from, right? So, and the talented 10 ain't nothing but the boule. Right, and they never really lived up to do what they basically were supposed to do. But that don't mean that we can't come together now, right? Even the churches and all work together, as a unit.
And also, we gotta read more than snippets, right?
That's right.
Because the concept of the talented 10th is about these 10% of the folks who essentially white folks are going to allow access, right, to their education, to their systems, whatever.
Right.
The rest of that, though, was that it is the talented 10th's job. It is your responsibility. It is your duty to use what you extract from white folks and use it to serve the betterment of the other 90%. That is that's the part that nobody talks about, right? That's the part that everybody leaves out.
That's right.
There is going to be a portion of us that they are always going to let through the door.
Right. I like that.
The problem is not that they let us through the door. The problem is that they let your behind through the door, and you think you're supposed to be there.
Right.
You forget who you are.
Wow.
You act like you don't.
Wow.
You act like you don't got nobody in your family named Pookie no more. You don't know nobody.
Right.
Look here, my ring bearer was Man.
Right.
Literally,
Indeed.
my
Right.
ring bearer in my wedding was Man.
Right.
Literally, and I'm not being like literally, right? You can't get to a place where you act like you don't know who
It's
you
true.
are.
That's right.
It's true.
And
That's
you
real.
disconnect from who you are.
It's true. And that's what we have to organize from a place of truth. Because what they'll have us do is create or manufacture some success plan for us that really don't bring any success. It makes us individualistic. It makes us, great survivalists, and we look good doing it. We look polished. But we
also look stupid because
Yes.
that's a lie that they tell. White folks ain't individualists either.
No.
If they didn't take care of each other, if they didn't create laws to
That's
support
right.
one another, they wouldn't have the success that they have.
That's right.
It's a fallacy that we buy into.
That's
Again,
right.
this is white
right.
supremacy is
It's a beast.
something else.
Yeah.
And that's why I said we have to come out of survival mode. Because that's what it tends to do. It makes us have to just take care of ourselves. They've created something that says if you reach it to the top, you don't have to go back.
Well, we down to our final minute.
Bye. Oh.
Nah, it's fine. We down to our final minute, and already came across my mind like Attorney Don and Dr. Kim. Y'all beautiful. Y'all like the way y'all roll off each other. We could tell
that's
y'all.
my
We could tell
sister.
y'all. Yeah, we could tell y'all sisters. And then it's it's just great for me to sit over here and learn from the sisters today, from the queens. Special shout out to our queens, our
Yes.
black queens out there.
Yes, indeed. Shout out to the queen.
Yeah, we got
Brothers.
we got Dr. Kim Muktarian and Attorney Don
Yes.
Blagrove. Am I saying it correctly?
You are saying it correctly. You said it
Yeah.
correctly every time. Don't say anything yourself.
So it's sad. We're gonna have to have you here again sooner or later. Everybody gonna have to check their Rolodex, what they call it, their Palm Palette or whatever, because we talked about we definitely broke down a lot about the system and the corruption of it, the contradictions of it, the hypocrisies of it, but we want to talk about some solutions of it also.
Sure.
I definitely know I wanted to come down to some solutions. I got through only maybe not even half the questions that I had on paper to ask, and I had a million more going through my mind because it's a lot that I want to know. And y'all was really teaching. As I say, I learn something every time I'm here. I appreciate it again. Until next time. Know thyself, love your people, and walk in black power. This is Africans United, Know Thyself Black Power Radio, where black consciousness is not just talked about, it's lived. Remember, proper education always corrects error. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Woohoo! Yeah.
Strong word.
Community Radio, WRLYLP, Raleigh.
What's up, you guys? It's your host, Joe Marie, and you are on time for Girl Talk Radio. Let's get into it.